smart muses, and another edition of Catholic Splaining. Prepare yourself. You're about to be Catholic splained. You have been warned. And that is my new introduction. I might have to change around some of the formatting. I didn't realize till I got it going, but hey, I had some fun putting that together. And today on Catholic Splaining, what are we going to talk about? Well, once again, one of the 7 deadly sins. More precisely, the 7th of the 7 deadly sins. We will be done with it from here on out. Well, probably we won't be done with sin. However, we will be done with the Sunday Catechism of the 7 deadly sins. Sloth is one of those weird ones. And I mean, is it really so bad? Well, guess what? We're going to find out together because sloth is probably a bad word. It's a bad word. It's a bad translation. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's see who's here. By the way, we have Chris Sant. Hello, Chris Sant. Thank you for being here. It is Matt L. Please correct. We are correct. It's Matt L, not Matt I. Hail to the chat. Well, I guess hail's good because we like to hail Mary here for sure. Hail to the. All hail the mighty one or whatever. Yeah, I think, do we say that in Mass? I don't know. Genie Mac. Now I'm confused. But anyways, hello, everybody. We are going to be Catholic splaining Sloth, or more precisely, it's called Acedia or Acadia. Is it Acadia or is it Acedia? Dagnabbit. Darn it, Jim, I'm a musician, not a speaker of words. But it just occurred to me. So, 'cause some people have asked me, I keep saying I'm a this, I'm a that. Yeah, I am actually a historian and a musician and an anthropologist and all sorts of things. I had nothing better to do with my spare time when I was in my 20s. So that's what that is all about. But I am not a theologian. Believe it or not, even though I've had a great deal of success writing about these things, I never actually ever took a Catholic theology class. I never even took CCD. I never took a Catholic Sunday school class. All of my education about Jesus, formal or otherwise, came from Sunday school in my Protestant denomination. So there. But so I technically cannot call myself a theologian. I cannot. I never even took a theology class. I like sloth, says Matt L. I feel like sloth is my latest or least favorite sin, associated with gluttony, which I find gross. I feel like sloth is my least favorite sin. Yeah. Well, and we talk a little bit about gluttony too. I think that sometimes gluttony is also misunderstood. It's not just about stuffing your face and the like. Now, when I was going a little deeper into this, I was a little bit confused. Is that the right word? Because I'm like, is it really a sin to be slothful? And I do a lot of sloth. I lay my white self on the beach, usually covered from head to toe because I'm so white I burn and I would get instant skin cancer. But I sleep in on Saturdays. I sleep in on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Since I'm not on a contract schedule right now. When I say contract, like from here to here, I take individual contracts. So is it a sin to just sit around and be lazy? If that's the case, then why would God command us to rest on the 7th day and not do any work? He got hardcore with the Jews. He gave them all sorts of prescriptions. And if you know any absorbent, gosh, if you know any absorbent Jews, they're observant Jews, Orthodox, they still, they will even consider turning on the television or turning off the television, or turning on a light or turning off a light an act of work. So if sitting around on your buttocks doing no work, doing literally nothing for a day, if it was sinful, then why would God command us to do it? Well, we're going to be examining that today, because is that really what's going on with Sloth or Acadia? If I am saying that wrong, please correct me. My resident grammar police is in bed right now, so help me out. Hello, it is Riker 1776. is it still sloth? I can't move or walk correctly. Others know I want to feel worthless. Want me to feel worthless for being 425 pounds. If you're being literal, hey, I don't know what's going on with that, and I don't judge. I don't judge at all. But well, let's dig into this. Let's dig into what sloth or Acadia is. Gosh, or is it Acidia? What do I have a pronunciation thing? It's right here. I have the definition. I have the Greek origin. I don't know if I really am feeling self-conscious now. Acidia? Is that it? Oh, here it is. Acidius. Yes, Acidia, not Acadia. Acidia. Maybe is Acadia like a place? Oh my gosh, I'm feeling really slightly embarrassed. All right. Well, let's just dig into it. The definition of sloth. Now, if you look at the dictionary definition of sloth, it says reluctance to work or make an effort. We're going to look at that first part. So it's not necessarily that you don't work, it's reluctance to work or make an effort. Now, when you're talking about the sin version, those are my words, it's called spiritual sloth. So when people don't use acedia, I'm so happy now that I've got the phonetic pronunciation. When they're acedia, they're talking about spiritual sloth. So probably a better word for what sloth as a seven deadly sin would be spiritual sloth. That is reluctance to work or make an effort. Let me see here. I want to make sure I get all the comments. God just tells me it's painful and not to worry about it. Just watch out for others. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I have spiritual sloth. Okay. Yes. Yes. Because if sloth were a sin, especially a deadly sin, because when something's a deadly sin, we're getting into mortal sin territory, like send you straight to hell sin. But God cannot command us to sin. So if he tells us to sit on our butts every Sunday, or if you're a Jew, every Saturday, then, you know, that's the thing. Uh, in Catholicism, we still are commanded to rest on the seventh day, on the Sunday, rather. So all you out there, make this your excuse right now. The primary way that we fulfill it is by giving God what God is due, by attending the Mass and receiving the sacraments if we are so disposed. But you're supposed to hold off on what they call unnecessary work. And it's actually pretty nice when you do that. It's like you have permission. Now, that is not to say, though, that you don't do any work. You know, we never went hardcore like the Jews do. You can cook, you can pull up weeds, you can do all that kind of stuff. And if you have the kind of job where you have to work, for example, if you are a doctor, if you're a fireman, a policeman, if you are a caregiver, I'm a caregiver, yes, I will do heavy housework on a Sunday even, and it's not sinful to do that. Okay. But we're starting to get more into the 10 Commandments, which we're not talking about. But we're talking about spiritual sloth, reluctance to work or make an effort. And let me dig into another. Matt says, it is the most difficult sin to define a sin. I would argue yes. And I'm glad that you anticipated that, because there is actually an article here that says exactly that. But before we do, let's look at what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says. And whenever you see CCC, that's what it is. It's 2094. Acedia, or spiritual sloth. So even the Catechism says that. Am I still saying acedia? Yes. Goes so far as to refuse the joy that comes from God and to be repelled by divine goodness. So we're now getting into the soul stuff. We're not really talking about this. Again, this is not really about things you do with your body. Okay. This is a spiritual attitude. And the definition, according to the Catechism, is to refuse the joy that comes from God. And look at this, were you repelled by divine goodness? when you look at it like that, you're seeing why it's called and considered a deadly sin. Deadly sins are either objectively sinful in themselves or they lead to sin. Pride, wow, look what pride leads to. Lust, what it leads to. What is it? And we've already talked about lust, what that really is. Now, so spiritual self and being repelled by divine goodness, that leads you down a really nasty path. Really nasty. Um, Glenzer says, reluctance to work or make an effort. All right. Chrysanth, isn't it that we can't do servile work? We can still do chores and such that we may enjoy doing and don't mind doing. I would be way off base. So, uh, yeah, and I think for that reason, the church is very careful not to give anything set in stone because you also run the risk of okay, you got to do chores around the house. If you don't, then you're getting into the territory you're not looking after what you need to look after. And I think it's also an attitude of it. And it's one of those commandments that I always say that God didn't do it for him. He doesn't care. He did it for us. We need to have a day where we give ourselves not permission to not be an Energizer bunny, to give ourselves rest, to give yourself a nap. When I was working that horrible job for 25 years, being a teacher, you're dead. Okay, you can't do anything. It was like, oh, thank goodness Sunday's here. I can take a nap and give yourself permission to do so. So, yeah, reluctance to. Oh, I already said that. Okay, so what does that Matt L say? Way off topic. Enjoyed your stream about Magician Master Riftward Cycle, the Riftward Saga Book 2. I'm going to pick it up. So next time I'm going to follow. Yay! Yay! Well, I hope you didn't get too much spoiled, but I suppose if you don't have a lot of context, you wouldn't be. Hey, we love it, and that's what I want to do. Speaking of doing the Lord's work in fantasy, it's good for you. It's good to get good fantasy, not to get into too much behind the scenes. The negativity surrounding a lot of what's happening to our IPs, particularly Star Wars, it started to be bad for people's souls, and it was leading to sin. And it led to some really again, things that people don't even know happened. So, which is why I really won't talk about Star Wars too much like right now. It's like if your left hand calls you to sin, or is it your right hand? Who cares which one? Cut it off. There's some nasty stuff going on, and it's Star Wars for crying out loud. It's like, yay, I'm going to go to the pearly gates and tell Jesus, yeah, I did sin, but it was for Star Wars, so it's okay. No, 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 no. But even before things got really nasty, there was this feeling that we really need to start putting our efforts towards something that makes us happy. And we can't go forward, so let's go backwards. That's my little divergence, but let's go back to sin. Gosh, being repelled by divine goodness. How terrible is that? And this is also, I think, from the Catechism, or it might be from Catholic Answers. It says, sloth is a sin of omission. If you don't know what a sin of omission is, it is a sin of omission. It's a sin you don't do. Like, you can sin by omission. A good example of a sin of omission is you're just minding your own business. It's not like you're doing anything, but you see some guy next to you that's beating the living daylights out of an old lady, and you don't do anything about it. You just go, "Oh, I'm just gonna sit here, la-di-da-di-da." That's a sin of omission. You can call 911, all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's a very, very bad example. But when we do public confession of our sins in the mass, one of the things that we say is what I have done and what I have failed to do through my fault, through my most grievous fault. Oh, and the old one's even better. That'll really make you agree. Was it Quia peccavi nimis cogitatione verbo et opera mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. And I have sinned, greatly sinned in thought, word, and deed, through my grievous faults. This is the old Confiteor, but we say in English, and what I've done and what I have failed to do. Why did I get the old Latin Mass? Same idea. We confess it. So yeah, you confess it. Lack. And a sin of omission being a lack of desire and or performance. What does croissant say? Hello, it's untamed manner. It's untamed manner. Yes, we're talking about sin. Sins of omission. How dare you? How dare you not sin or not do an act of good, and what I have done and what I have failed to do. Repent and suffer for Star Wars. It's already gone. LOL. Read EU. Yeah, in my head, I have gone back to Star Wars being the EU. I have been able to do that, but the online execution of some of this stuff, like I said, okay, there's a line in one of my favorite movies called A Man for All Seasons, when this guy basically sells his soul so he can be the Lord Chancellor of like Wales. And St. Thomas More says, the Lord said it profits a man nothing to gain the whole world if he loses his soul, or he will lose his soul for gain. It's not worth it to gain the whole world. But for Wales, well, for Star Wars, really? You're going to give up your soul for Star Wars? Aren't you supposed to beat your breast at through my fault? Yes, through my fault, through my most grievous fault. Yes, with each one, 3 times you beat your breast. Now, that sounded weird and dirty, but it's not as bad as it sounds. Because you don't actually hit yourself too hard, because that's just not cool. You just give yourself a little tap on your chest. I usually do it on the shoulder so it doesn't look weird. But yeah, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. And when you're around people that know what that means, like sometimes I would do that when I was teaching at the Catholic school, and we would do stuff in Latin and more traditional liturgy. But I don't want to talk about that because that might zero in where I am. But like, if you realize you did something wrong, you just thump your chest 3 times, and you're just like, that's just like a signal, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Or if you're like, can't say something, it's like sign language. We would do that. We'd tap ourselves, do the mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. And the reason why I like that is because it doesn't allow you to make an excuse, because so many times people want to confess their sin and say, but it wasn't my fault. It was, if that person hadn't been such a jerk, if that person hadn't been so rude, I wouldn't have called a person that terrible name, or I wouldn't have done that horrible thing. But you're not allowed to do that. You have to say, it is my fault. My fault. And I'm going to be doing a Catholic explaining the Mass, because if you are Catholic and you do go to Mass and you don't know these little things, you're doing Mass wrong. Why go to Mass and not get all the fun? That's no fun. Yeah, so in case people don't know, when people think of confession for Catholics, this is Catholic explaining. I warned you, you're going to be Catholic explained. They think of sacramental confession, like when you go to a priest and all that stuff. And that is what you do when you really got some intense stuff or something that you want to talk over with the priest. That's what I love about confession. Yes, Jesus Jesus forgives us, and he gave that power to the apostles, and through his priests in the sacrament of confession. Maybe I'll do a 7 sacraments at Catholic explaining, but when you're talking with a priest, you don't just confess the sins. You talk it over with them. It's like, well, what can I do next time? What can I do next time to make it better? Or what can I do to make it right if it's a sin against somebody else? Manner. I guess that's fine. Oh, maybe did I miss that? I don't know. I'm such a sinner. Yeah, we're all sinners. Sacrifice whales for Star Wars. I know it's a Catholic thing. Um, yeah, but every mass there is a group confession of sin where we confess to each other because it says in the Bible, confess your sins to each other. So that's just for the normal stuff, and I always like that because it makes me kind of think because you get your mind set. And it says at the very beginning of mass, and you confess and you do that, and you say sorry, and you ask forgiveness from God, of course, because God is the true forgiver of sins, but also from each other. You need to ask forgiveness of others. And I think part of the reason why we are in such a messed up situation, why there's so much pride out there, so much pride, because they won't ask for forgiveness. And part of asking forgiveness is to say you're sorry. There's and I love my faith because it forces me every week. I've got to do it. And if you go to daily mass, you have to do it every day. And we have a morning examination of conscience and an evening examination of conscience. Because it doesn't let you get away with it. It's like AA. AA is so awesome. Well, if you're an alcoholic, it's awesome. If you're not an alcoholic, you're well, you can get something out of it, but you're not allowed to talk. You can go if it's like it's an open AA meeting, which is, by the way, comes from Ignatian spirituality, a whole other different story. But they don't let you. They don't. You're not allowed to do that at AA either. You can't pull this. Well, I drank because someone made me to. Not gonna happen. Same thing. Same thing. You can't make an excuse. What is folk north? Oh gosh. He's making me cuss on Catholic explaining. How dare you? How dare you? 7 years Catholic school, 4 years nominational Christian school, none lay. Oh, well, there you go. Wow. Yeah. Catholics. I taught Catholic schools for a very long time. And as a music teacher, that actually is really nice. Part of the reason is you don't have to worry about your Christmas concert. You can sing as many Christmas songs as you want, and thank goodness no one had a problem with us doing all the Santa Claus stuff. We believed in Santa Claus. That was the official word. And if there was some little kid that tried to say mom and dad said there wasn't a Santa Claus, I shut them down. Yeah. Um, pudding tame. It's pudding tame. Yes, everyone. If you do not follow Maury, she is on Twitter as Confined Cat. She is my gal from the Once Upon a Fan days. We know things, but we won't tell. And Congress. Yes, Sloth is Congress. Yes. Chrisanne says, yes, I have one priest who actually talks sins over to you. Most of the other ones just rush you throughout the door. Not a fan of that part. Yeah, that's true. And sometimes it depends. If there's a big old line, yeah, you just need to kind of get through it. But you can all making an appointment or going when you know there's not one. There's actually a parish near me. It's not my home parish where there's like 4 priests giving confession. And there's one priest that's notorious for you can have for giving you 10, 15 minutes. So if you need to do the quick one and just to get the quick thing, but if you want to get the counseling, you go with him. And sometimes a priest might say, especially if the line is long, I would like to talk with you about this. Could you please make an appointment? Especially if it's a serious situation. But yeah, I love how they advise you how to make it right. Right with God and right with your neighbor. And they don't let you get away with it. I just love it. It's very supernatural. Riker says Punisher in confession is comics at its finest. I have heard so much about that. I probably should watch it. Sorry, ma'am. Oh, it's okay. Hey, once I had Steve sometimes will be my co-pilot on this, and he's an atheist because we're open here at Miss Martin Muses. And sometimes a few things will slip. Let's see. Yeah, gosh, I love this. No, I have, I'm gonna do a Catholic explain the ordinary form. I'm not gonna Catholic explain the extraordinary form just because I'm not. Most people go to the ordinary form. But, just a little bit of trivia. Do you know that as a Catholic, that for Catholics in the Latin rite, which most of us belong to, there's like 4 or 5 different legit ways you can that are part of the Latin rite, and it's fun. All right, let's continue with sloth. So this is what we were talking about it being a difficult thing to define. It is the most difficult sin to define and credit as sin since it refers to an assortment of ideas dating from antiquity and including mental, spiritual, pathological, and physical states. Oh my gosh, we're getting mental, spiritual, pathological, and physical. Word sloth is a translation of the Latin term assidia, Middle English acid, and means without care. Gosh, I know all the Europeans, they all went to bed, but, there's, Archer Collin, he actually speaks Middle English because he does reenacting with that. Okay. Oh, yay! Well, thank you, yes, Maury put her Instagram Instagram, I think, is where you are more active, isn't it? Yeah, she's got the coolest things with cats. Oh gosh, everyone ran away when I started talking about sin and confession. But hey, it is called the seven deadly sins. But no, everyone that is here and that is coming and that will be listening later, I appreciate all of you for being here. Acidia is a weird one. It's kind of hard because it is so hard to find. And if you really have nothing better to do with your spare time, go to some St. Thomas Aquinas. He writes about 500 million words on, like, the first syllable because that's what he does. Mentally, Acedia has a number of distinctive components, of which the most important is affectlessness, a lack of any feeling about self or others. Dun, dun, dun. A lack of any feeling about self or others. Wow. If you will look on YouTube and all over Twitter, there is an explosion of videos about what to do when you're dealing with a narcissist. I've been going through that. And when I joked on Twitter, I hope I wasn't offending anyone that, oh my gosh, I've become one of those, meaning that I can't avoid it. I finally ended up getting caught up in this, but, when you the problem with a narcissist and why you cannot deal with them and you just gotta cut them out of your life, it sounds harsh, but it's true, is they don't have any feeling about, others, I should say. They have something about others, but usually it's self-loathing, but that's but think about it. And remember, we are called to love ourselves and our neighbor. When you don't love yourself, that is as bad as not loving your neighbor. Sometimes people focus too much on loving their neighbor. You gotta love yourself because if you don't love yourself, what are you doing? A lack of feeling about self or others. A mind state that gives right to boredom, rancor, apathy, and a passive, inert, or sluggish mentation. Maybe I'm glad I never actually took any theology courses. My brain's about to explode. But I love this stuff. I love this stuff. I was one of those geeks when I worked at Barnes and Noble when I was in college, and I would read my catechism on break because it had, just come out and everyone was all excited about it. Mentally, Acidia has a number of distinct components. And when you think about this in terms of spiritualness, this lack of feeling and stuff, it leads from acts of omission to acts of commission. Cruelty, lying, hurt, all sorts of things. It's like they say on the show Manifest, which, by the way, I'm only, like, on the 2nd episode right now. I was gonna binge it, but things happened. It's all connected. All of it. Okay, let me see if I can get some of your comments here. Oh, I didn't miss a comment. Yay. Don't worry. I there's more cussing on this channel than I think in most channels. I always tell people, you know what? I got rid of every vice. And that's the one that's left. And oh dear Lord help me. I try to be a good example. I really do. The only place I draw the line, of course, is taking the Lord's name in vain. That's not okay. Um, Damning the name of the Lord. You know the one. You know the one. And if do follow anything with Friday Night Tights or the Nerd Father, he's a friend of Nerdrotic's channel and stuff. And when they sing happy birthday to him, instead of saying Father Miller, they said, "Don't take the Lord's name in vain, Father Miller," because that's the only thing he minds too. Well, wow, look at all the gang that's in here. People want to talk about sin. We like sin here at Miss. Well, actually, we don't like sin at Miss Smart Muses, but we do have a lot of sin. That's why we're here. I respect that one too. Okay, help narrow it down for me. Which one are you talking about? Because I have been yapping like a yapper. Yes. So just keep that in mind. But I do want to slip in here that excessive sloth, kind of like gluttony, can be maybe leading into mortal sin territory because you're not looking after yourself. We are commanded to look after ourselves. But how do I say this? It's very hard. It's very hard to really condemn and to find out where that is. That's why, you need to talk this over with spiritual directors. Lord's name in vain. Ah, yes. Yeah. Well, because that does mean something. The other ones are nonsense words. And it is the second commandment. So there. And I have found that I went through a phase where I broke the second commandment a lot. I found that it did also affect my relationship with the Lord. You need to treat holy things that are in a holy manner. There is holiness. Vain. Mhm. Yeah. Oh, vain, yeah. Like, yeah. And you can also bring a curse on yourself, sort of, because that's kind of what it means. But I'm not talking about curses the like a Harry Potter thing or a witch doing a hex, like that kind of a curse. It's more something that you're doing to your soul. And we are warned not to basically take oaths. The Jesus warned a lot about the taking of oaths. You got to be careful about that. And I think he even said don't even do it. And obviously it was hyperbolic because then there were other times where he did want people, such as, professing the name of the Lord, some of those things that we can call oaths. There's different degrees of it. All right, let's look at the opposite virtue because I don't like to talk about sin unless I'm talking about what to do about it. So we have sloth and what to do about it. The opposite virtue for Cydia is perseverance. Perseverance. Why is it perseverance? I actually have no idea. Well, I guess it makes sense because the whole idea about spiritual sloth is giving up or being repelled by that. Perseverance is not giving up, staying the course, no matter what. And if you are getting into that spiritual sloth or even the physical sloth, again, being cautious, that can be associated with depression. Because depression in itself is not a sin, but if you can bring yourself deeper into the depression, if you do not do something actively against that. And it's very hard. I think sometimes it's some of the hardest things you might find you have to do. Like, when you're going through depression, you don't want to get out of bed, for example, Even if it kills you, you get out of bed. One way around that is to get a pet. They will make you get out of bed. Your cat will sit and yell at you and hit you and meow and drive you insane. So do what you have to do. All right, so perseverance is the opposite virtue. I like to do that. And hey, Robert Jordan. No, this is from an old presentation. So that's the end of Acidia, and this is the end of our 7 deadly sins. Those of you that are still in the chat, let's talk about some of your favorite deadly sins. We had, what is it? Pride, avarice, gluttony, lust, Acidia, sloth. I'm missing 2. I hate my life. Wrath, and I'm going to cheat and look it up. Okay. Riker 1776 says, frickin' rascal always tries to trip me. Keep going forward. Yes, exactly that. Exactly. The song You'll Never Walk Alone is so overplayed, and the Liverpool Football Club somehow hijacked it, and I resent that great deal. Liverpool, how dare you? Because I don't root for Liverpool. But there's something to be said about, walk on, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. And I actually sing that song. I'm a soprano, even though I don't like being a soprano. But God made me a soprano. I went through all my hormone changes. I landed on the age of 19 on a soprano tessitura, and I hate it. But I am a soprano. It's fun singing solo work as a soprano. If I'm in a choir, I always tell a white lie and say I'm an alto. Mindfulness. Oh, okay. Mindfulness, yeah. What is that other sin? My gosh. You see, this is terrible. It's like, do you know your sins? Okay, we got lust, we got gluttony, avarice, wrath, envy. Yes. Oh gosh. Holy crud. Look what happens with envy. How many sin comes from envy? Greed. Yes. Though I think greed is avarice. It's kind of the same thing. Wrath was a very good one, says Chrysanth. I remember that one nun with the TV show in the 90s did an excellent show on anger and tied it together well. Your stream reminded me of that. Aw. Well, thank you. Was that the one with Steek? It might have been. Are you talking about Mother Angelica? That lady was so funny and so. What I loved about Mother Angelica was she just laid it out. She would say, I try to be perfect, but she had anger and temptations and wasn't always perfect. None of us are. I love it when she was being interviewed by Raymond Arroyo for her biography, and she did this before she fell into the coma, which eventually, she didn't come out of. And she said, "Don't you dare try to sugarcoat my biography." She said, "You tell the truth, all of it." It's like, yeah. Did you say, oh, I did say greed, envy. Yes, thank you. Thank you for helping me, Christiane. Mindfulness can causes you to forget the sin. That was her name. She was hilarious. Oh, yeah. I love her. Yeah, loved her. Loved her, loved her. But you know what I mean when I say she wasn't perfect and she owned it? And if you do know, if one does know any nuns or sisters, they gosh, they're some of the wisest women and the most self-knowledgeable, and they will admit it. The whole stereotype of the nun and the sister and all that, it really isn't there, at least from my experience. I knew some Carmelites. Were they Carmelites? Were they Poor Clares? I knew some Carmelites and Poor Clares, but they were like the extern ones because nuns are cloistered. So most of the ones you'll run across are sisters. I've taught with a lot of sisters. They are badass and they're funny. No one can party like a sister. Yeah, love, and you can watch reruns of Mother Angelica. Puddin' Team says, the movie Seven, what's in the box? Oh, you know what? I need to watch that. I need to watch that. And I think I said this at the beginning of the whole thing that I said, if you want to, if you want to understand Seven, watch this or vice versa. Vice versa. Hello, says Stephen Ransom. Going through my sloth at the moment. Indeed, getting back into life has changed my outlook, Miss Muses. Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but help me out. I think I got you. Yeah, thank you for being here. 13 years of Catholic school, says Chrysanth, and I had one sister actually taught religion. She was my favorite. Oh, yeah. Well, sadly, a lot of the sisters left. And I have a theory about that, to be honest. Um, and I think in many ways it was maybe a positive. When I say a positive, maybe that's the wrong thing. It used to be back in the day that women didn't have a lot of choices, both in the secular and in the religious world, meaning that if you were a Catholic girl, if you were a normal girl, and if you didn't get married, you could be married, you could be a secretary, or you could be a nurse or a teacher. In the Catholic world, it was the same, but you were expected to be a nun if you weren't married, or a sister. So I think that some people went and became sisters who really didn't truly have a vocation to it. And then when things opened up for them in the 70s, they hightailed it, because the nuns and the sisters that I know, they are high quality stuff. Yeah. And yeah, they're great. There was a nun a sister rather. See, I still get confused with that, and they will correct you. A sister I worked with who she taught religion and science. She was from India, and she was wild. I loved her to death. Um, Taught with, I forget what her order was. Some of the coolest sisters I've ever run across, and they are bursting from the seams. They're going all over America now and repopulating all the Catholic schools, or the Dominican Sisters of Saint Cecilia in Nashville. They're teachers. They have their own teacher college, and they are hardcore, and they are funny, and they are amazing. I got to hang out with them for a little bit. It was fun. Chris Ann says, it always bothered me that Catholic school didn't encourage boys and girls who had potential to go to religious life. Yeah. Well, that was another thing. They had it in their heads that the church was changing. And I remember when I joined the church. I joined the church as an adult. It was mid-90s. It was still the thing where all the priests were sitting around witching and complaining, and all the sisters were witching and complaining. We want to be priests. So when it came time to encourage men to be priests, they would be like, well, I guess we want you to be priests, but it's not fair. And if you're a dude, are you going to be like, oh, okay, well, that just sounds like a great idea. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of encouragement, but part of it is that the witness that the religious, even today, I'll run across some religious that give really bad examples. I don't like to stereotype, but if the nun is in her habit or modified habit, she tends to be pretty cool. The ones that look like, I won't say something mean, but they look like bitter old blue-haired hags. Okay, I guess that was kind of mean. They're very bitter, and the reason why they're all left out on their own is because their orders died because they were so, soul killing. I was hanging out at a parish thing, and I was talking with a sister. I didn't even know she was, because she wasn't dressed like one, and she was just the most depressing person I've ever been around. And I thought she was about ready to burn her bra, and metaphorically. And I'm like, yeah. So if that's the kind of sister you're around, you're not going to want to join them. But if you hang around some really cool ones, I found that, yeah, they do. Who's the other one? The TOR. Those gals over in Ohio, they're good. Carmelites are awesome. You can't go wrong with Carmelites. My sister from another mister, Little Flower, she, doctor of the church, she was a Carmelite, but she was a cloistered one. Oh gosh, I could never have been cloistered. Actually, I couldn't have been non-cloistered. I am not suited to the vocation. Puddin' Tame says, "I watched it once. I don't think I want to see it again." 7. Yeah, I think you warned me about that, Maury, didn't you? That it might have been a little much even for me. Okay, I'm smack in the middle of Sisters of St. Joseph territory. Okay, Sisters of St. Okay, you're laughing. Is it? I'm not familiar with them, so probably they're not good. Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, and when people think of Carmelites, they think there are active Carmelites. There are Carmelite sisters. They're teachers and nurses. Um, don't want to give away the ones that are around me. We got lots of them where I am, and that's why you'll find different pockets. You want to know something interesting? What's interesting, Teresa? Well, this is interesting. When you find a parish or a diocese that is really, really hardcore devoted to Jesus in the Eucharist and that do holy hours and do perpetual adoration, in other words, when they focus on Jesus, they're beating off the vocations with a stick. And not just the vocation to priesthood and religious life, but there's also the vocation to marriage. Marriages suck. We need solid marriages. And you get good marriages too. A lot of people go into marriage without really realizing what it entails. That's my personal opinion. We need to have solid marriages. They think it's romantic, and it's like a romantic thing. It's a feeling, which is not really what it is. I mean, it is. Obviously, you have to have romantic feelings. Obviously, you need to be sexually attracted to your spouse. But there's more to it than that. Because you can be sexually attracted to anyone. Yes, it's intense. Says that. The blue-haired hat comment was funny. I know. I'm feeling guilty, but you know exactly what I mean. I mean, it's like they're black hole vampire energy sucking, depressing, awful things. But Dominican Sisters of Saint Cecilia, they're great, and they're Saint Cecilia. That's kind of where I was attracted to them because of the music. But you know, about a day there, and I was like, "Yeah, that ain't for me." Because what they do is, if you think you might have a vocation, or even think you don't have a vocation, if you're in your 20s, it's a good idea to just spend a weekend. They will do that. They will say, "Hey, gals, come on in and hang out with us for a weekend." So you get to go behind the cloister. Because there are cloisters within the convents, place like no men are allowed and all that. So you get to go there, and we got to stay with the novices for a weekend. Another friend of mine from college, we went together. Neither of us had a vocation, but as we found out pretty quick, but it's like, it's good for you. And I did that with a Carmelite one as well. And it's like, okay, Carmelite's not for me. And it just wasn't, but it's really nice to do, to get a taste of it. I had a blast. It was fun, but I was so ready to get out of there. It just wasn't me. It just wasn't my vocation. Married an atheist, and it lasted 9 months. Ah, okay. I'm gonna say something controversial, and I knew better, really. Yeah, you can marry a person can marry an atheist. It's I don't think it's sacramental necessarily, but it's still illicit marriage. I'm talking from the Catholic point of view here. It can work. It can. Obviously, it's not ideal, but is it the same principles apply? What are you together for? Steve Ransom says, Nurse Ratchet from Run from the Cuckoo's Nest. A golem. Yes, yes. Chris Anth, I did a week-long retreat in high school. It was great. I've been trying to find something similar years later. Yeah, and it's kind of hard because, again, it's easier when you're younger, and so you kind of piggyback onto those vocation things. Maybe there is out there, or if there's not, I'm gonna get in touch with my contacts and say, "Y'all need to do this," especially for single women, but not just for single women, for married women too. Heck, they need to get away. Um, yeah, just, spend a weekend hanging out with some sisters, hanging out with some nuns. You can hang out with nuns. Okay, this is the saddest story of my life. We're at a bit of a free for all now. So if you have any Catholic explaining question or anything you want to ask about the Catholicism or talk about, please go ahead and throw it in there. But when I was visited Lisieux for the last time, I go, I've been to Lisieux several times. My namesake, the little flower. Well, my fake namesake, the little flower, Therese of Lisieux, and I went to her convent where she was, and the nuns were behind the grill, and the lay people, there was a place for us there, and everyone, was there. You don't have to be a chick; it's a public park, and I was going to do the liturgy of the hours with them when their liturgy of the hours started, but then I think I was off about the timing, and then I was like, "Oh gosh," because I had to catch a train and then I had to catch a plane, so I had to leave before we did the Liturgy of the Hours, but that would have been pretty cool, but you can do that. And depends on what part of the country you live in, how many sisters and religious communities you have, because there are some parts of America that have never had that kind of dynamic stuff just because of our demographics. Like sometimes people go like, "Oh my gosh, there's one priest for 3 parishes here," and then, this is why the church has gone downhill since the '60s, and then my friend said, "Well, actually, there's always only been 1 priest for these 3 parishes because it's out in the middle of the country and there's just not a lot of Catholics." You'll find, especially in the Bible Belt, you'll find a lot of, um, Baptists and all that, but not a lot of Catholics, so there'll be very, very small little parishes. Chrisanne says, "I did a week-long retreat in high school. Yay! It was great. I've been trying to find something similar years later." Yeah, well, if you got nothing better to do with your spare time, fly over to Lourdes. I did Lourdes. That was great. Lourdes is fun. So is, well, Lisieux, obviously. Go to say Saint Therese. Go to Bernadette Soubirous' place. I think it's in Navarre. That's in France. Ireland. Gosh, Ireland's great. You walk three steps and you run across a saint or a shrine. Uh, and it's a small place, so you can do that. I think there are retreats, so lay retreats. The thing is finding a good one. All right, Stephen Ransom that I always thought getting married romantic, but staying married is a duty to the promise of the bond. Exactly. Yes. And yeah, don't get me wrong, romance has to be there with it. Don't get me, but if you only think of it as romance. I have a theory. Look at how many people fall out of love after the 7 years. "I just don't love you anymore." Well, what usually happens by 7 years, the whole 7-year itch thing in marriage? Probably by that point, you popped out a couple of kids, maybe even only one. The wife is tired, she's cranky, she's having bladder issues from bearing your child. You wanna have some romantic getaway, but you can't, or even if you can, you gotta pay all this money for the babysitter, you gotta get up in the middle of the night to change diapers, you wanna do some fun stuff, but, oh dear, we've got the parent-teacher conference, and then, "I just think I don't love you anymore. I found someone else I love." Some nice little probably a bit younger. Maybe the wife tends to gain weight. I mean, women cheat too, don't get me wrong. I'm just thinking that some things that I have seen personally. And then it's like, of course you're just feel alive and in love with your mistress. You get to have sex with her, whatever you want. You get to go out and party the way you did before you got married. You don't have to worry. You don't have to change diapers and vice versa. The women can, the husband might be working 2 jobs to try to help out and all that. And it's like, he's never here for me. I guess I don't love him. But there's this guy at work who, gosh, he's really cool. The grass greener. And is it really, did they fall out of love or that things just got tough? Chrisanne says, "I'm in New Jersey. Most of the sisters are very liberal, to put it lightly." Yeah, yeah, you got to stay. Yeah, and you got to find them. You got to find them. Travel if need be. I went, well, if you're in New Jersey, well, still kind of far away. you can go over to Steubenville. So many people go to Steubenville because that's where Scott Hahn and all them are from. And they have Defending the Faith conference, which I love. I think does Patrick Madrid go there, and just lots of really good speakers, and just hanging around people. It gives you some really good, solid times. I don't know. Maybe we should have like an online Catholic retreat. Who knows? Stephen Ransom, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just is what it is. It's like he's just not romantic the way he used to be. It's like, yeah, he's working his butt off to help you. It's like, oh, he's getting gray hair. It's like, yeah, that's what happens when people get in their 30s. I didn't want to just man bash, so I was trying to think about women that do that. Yeah. One way to revitalize your marriage, just saying from what I have heard, because I am not married, is if you, and you should, well, this is Catholicism, so I'm going to say it, practice NFP for your family planning. That I've been told really helps, because when it comes time to have some happy time, oh yeah, I've heard things get really cool. Okay. Don't want to get too graphic about it, but you all can Google that method. And that is a method also that does not, of family planning, that does not use abortifacients. Sometimes people do the whole thing at Lent. I don't know, because I've never tried it, obviously, because I've not been married. Where you don't have sex during Lent. And they have a happy Easter. Just saying. Just saying. There's ways you can spice up your marriage and keep it happy and exciting. Messiah College in Pennsylvania, response retreats for all ages. Well, there you are. Yeah. And there's some around me. I just don't want to dox myself. There, you can find them. When in doubt, I don't know if you tune into Catholic Answers, or if you tune into the EWTN at all, or those call-in shows they do. Those dudes are really cool. They might give you a reference, like, hey, go check out these ladies. Stephen Ransom says, in astrology, Satan resides in each quarter for 7 years. Saturn is about the limits of things. Oh, Saturn resides. Did I say Satan? Interesting. Well, and isn't there, that was the thing in the Old Testament about the 7 years of Jubilee or something? I don't know. Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, well, we're wrapping up the 7 deadly sins. We're done sinning. Well, in a perfect world, we would be. But I do have it already prepared, Catholic explaining the Mass, which is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And maybe I'll do the 7 sacraments. Because I want to. And if there's any topics you all would like Catholic explained. I mean, half of my career has been because of stupid TV shows, or that idiot Dan Brown in his book, and people actually think it's what we believe. And then you can make money. Well, not make money. Well, I don't want to say that. I won't say no to money. I haven't said no to money. I mean, I will get money for my work, and for my writings, and for my speeches, or I have in the past. I've already Catholic explained the Lord of the Rings, but there's lots of stuff. History is my degree. My main degree is history and symphonic instruments. So want to dig into maybe some of the more interesting or controversial parts of church history, I am more than happy to, and nothing is off topic. That would be interesting. Yes, it would. What is interesting? Help me out. I don't know what you mean. I've made a playlist of these on my channel. The series as well. Oh well, I'll be damn. Oh, wait, I almost said a bad word. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And when you're making these streams and these things, you never know what people are gonna like. But I've always said, even if one person likes it, that's just great for me. And I'm really happy, so I'm getting more subs, and that means I guess I'm doing something right, but maybe I'm also helping people, and that's what I like to do. I won't lie, this also helps me because I've been depressed. I won't lie to you. Be because something very sad happened. Whenever bringing up a friendship. Okay. We've all broken up with someone we've loved, like a girlfriend or a boyfriend, but breaking up when friends break up, oh, that's hard. That's really hard. Because, often when you break up with a boyfriend, that's what you have your friends for, your girlfriends. But as I've always told people, and I'll tell anyone that wants to listen if they are in any way being privy to the situation, when I break up a friendship and want nothing to do with somebody, there is a very good reason. But that doesn't mean it doesn't make me sad. So if you are of a praying disposition, please continue to pray for me. The Seven Sacrament series, you want that? Oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna do that. But I've got to do the Catholic Swing the Mass because dag nabbit, I did all the work. That was hard because I really went. So yeah, I'll do Seven Sacraments. We'll start with the big one, baptism. A comprehensive as always. Oh, well, thank you. Topic: How to make the church needle again. I'm not sure what. I'm really feeling ignorant. I hope that's not dirty. I don't think it is. Um, we need to make the church Catholic again. It's been an interesting time, but the church is strong. It's just sometimes the the media doesn't help, and sometimes our hierarchy doesn't help us out. The human part of our hierarchy, the divine, yes. And maybe that's something else I need to do it. The apostolic succession things, the Pope. Why? Why do we have it? Uh, so many people are trying to say because they don't like some of the things that the Pope Francis has said about non-Christian things. He stepped a little bit into politics, with popes really aren't supposed to do. And I keep trying to tell people, it's like we don't listen to the Pope on that stuff. The Pope is irrelevant on that. But when he speaks of matters of faith and morals, he is solid. But they don't understand. It's like, well, why don't you just dump him or dump the church? It's like, no, you don't dump Peter. There's a reason Jesus gave us this Pope for this time. I just would really like for him to explain why a bit, because I was very spoiled. The two popes, I've had three popes now. I had John Paul II, who was a giant, and equally so, if not more so, but underrated, Pope Benedict. And I was devastated when he resigned. Devastated, because he was such a good pope. Oops, metal. Make it metal again. Okay, typo. Riker says, I'm sorry, we mentioned this. Depression can be a function of change. Getting out of it is an exercise of growth. Work those spiritual muscles. Yes, and I have. And yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think it also shows, dag nabbit, I'm a human, you know? Ooh, but it's hard when someone publicly ridicules you. It's like, ooh, that one stung. Um, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And you're right about the spiritual muscles. Now, one thing I do like about our technology nowadays is we have apps. There's an app for that. for example, there's something called Hallow, where they have like morning meditation, morning offerings, daily readings, and the daily psalm, daily examination of conscience, but it's like a recording. It's like an actor's doing it. Jim Caviezel has done a few of them and other people. So some as I've been going through this, you kind of say to yourself, I just don't have the energy to pray, but then you can turn on your app because my notification will come on. It's time to pray a psalm with Bishop Barron or something, and that jump starts you spiritually. But you're right. You're right about that. We need to work our spiritual muscles. And, maybe sometimes we make idols out of our friends. Don't maybe. Yeah. Been going through it myself, so having my own exercise. Well, sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Well, we can all kind of be here for each other. And not to mention everything we're going through with the planet. But I'll tell you what, I woke up today and I'm lucky enough that I am able to walk to mass because there's something very special about doing that. We have to drive everywhere and just right away, all the rituals, people I don't even know, we all were doing the same thing. We were all speaking the same language. We were all family. It was really cute. This is one of those really special moments, and it seems like it's so small. When it came time for the offertory and the basket was being passed, next to me there was a man and his wife and on the man's knee was a little girl about 1, maybe a bit older, but I mean, she was a baby, but she was big enough that in her hand she had the envelope. And I turned and smiled at her, and I knew what was gonna happen. And I held the basket, and she threw it in, and with the biggest smile on her face, and she was so proud of herself, and then she hugged her dad, and, he took the basket. We kinda laughed, but it's like that innocence of the child who was just so happy to, like, "Look at me, I can put an envelope in." She didn't know what was going on, but, just those little rituals, there's just so much comfort. And we got candles. We have candles. Bingo. We just said that. And there's also a shrine, and there's always lots of roses, so it always makes me happy and I always go look at the roses. Maybe one of these days I'll talk a little bit about roses. It goes back to Therese and the roses. Saint Therese. If you want to look her up, she's my gal. She's a doctor of the church. I was one of those that petitioned John Paul II actually to make her a doctor of the church, and she was really something else, or she is rather, and you know, she's special. So, indeed, the world's been tough, friend. This too will pass in time. Yes, it will. And if it doesn't, doesn't the Lord say the world sucks or something? I'm paraphrasing Jesus here, but the world does suck, right? We're not supposed to look for happiness in this world. Empires will rise and they will fall, and that's just what is meant to be. And one thing I like, I don't ask people what their denominations are here, but I have found in the past 10, 15 years so much ecumenism among us because some of these differences that we've had that maybe in the past kept us from having a common thing, because we have now, since we're all being attacked together, I found that we've all been banding together, and it's made us stronger. And I think it's very much close to Jesus's heart. He says he wants us to be one. He doesn't want us to be separated. And, in our pro-life work and in our fighting of the culture, we're fighting for righteousness, fighting for what is right, fighting to protect children. We've really found common ground, and I think that's really special. So, with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and quit because I want to read a chapter of my book, because I'm, of course, reading Magician Master, but I'm further along in the series in real life, and I'm reading the Exile's Return. I'm really, really looking forward to finishing this book. And as far as what's coming up with me, tomorrow is the next edition of Pub Crawl. My guest is going to be Potato Revan. He is a native Irishman, not like me, a fake Irish lady. I am not by any way, shape, or form anything Irish, but I just lived there as a little girl. And he is going to be talking about true crime and nerd culture. He's going to be taking us to a pub that will be announced, but it's going to be a cool one. So it'll be 1 o'clock Central. And then if you live across the pond, it will be 7 o'clock if you are in Ireland or England. And if you're in the France, Germany, Scandinavian area, it will be 8 o'clock. What's 7 plus 1? 8. It will be 8. So there. Stephen says, the rose is also a symbol from ancient Rome before Christ. Oh, I probably should know that. I'll look that up. Good night, says... Who ignores this Muses in chat? As someone with a somewhat faltering faith, it's nice to see conversation on the faith and spirituality taking place within the nerd culture, like you and Stieg. I love. Aw, well, thank you. We try. Dragonlance, yes, sir. Or I think you're a sir. Yeah, Stieg got me into Dragonlance too. I read last summer the first 2 trilogies, and I have some other ones to read, but yes, Dragonlance is great. We want to do, once we are done with The Magician Master, that will be the end of our Saturday chapter by chapter thing. We've been doing it for 2 years. We're ready to move on, but we will be reviving the Fantasy Tavern, where we will be discussing things like, okay, let's talk about Dragonlance. Let's talk about something else. So please stay tuned with that. Loving the pub crawl, says Stephen Ransom. Yes, thank you. I'm glad. I'm really glad. It was a great idea that was suggested to me by Stieg, and my mother came up with the name and some of the questions. We all brainstormed, and it was really, really nice. And I'm glad that there's been such a positive response. And stay tuned. The schedule's filling up. It really is, and that really thrills me too. But I'm going to be doing 2 a week. So stay tuned to Miss Smart Muses. If you have not already subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Have a great night, Chrysanth. Thank you, says Chrysanth rather. Don't forget to hit the like button away. Yes, please. That helps me. And also making comments helps me out a lot. I do have a new video where I really went down a weird anthropological rabbit hole with the whole Black Aragorn race swapping, but it's been bothering me for quite a while because I've been seeing too many parallels from my studies of American history. So maybe give that a look and comment for me, because I want to hear what y'all have to say. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great day, and be certain to not give in to Acidia. And I can't find the button. Here we go. Good night.